Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the state of UK gender relations and the right path forward. I have here with me David Pattison. Hi David, and thank you for joining us.
Nice to see you, thank you.
In our previous interview, I told you that I'm curious to find out more about what's your take on gender relations.
Okay.
So I look forward to hear you talk more about the state of gender relations in nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Great Britain, gender relations are not good. There's been this movement in the West, kind of since the sexual revolution of the 1960s. Women have been able to delay pregnancy or prevent pregnancy, and they've been able to lead pretty similar lives to the lives that men lead. They've been able to work. They've been able to, have active social lives, interact in society just similar ways men do. And this is something that women have wanted as a collective group, but it's now leading to problems where women don't feel like they're following their natural biological function, which is to have children or to be mothers or to be heads of households and have an active family life. And I think it's caused a lot of angst among women, and it's led to a sort of a legal and cultural attitude that men and women play by different rules. And I think it's led to bad gender relations, which is what we have now. It's women that are complaining about the gender relations. I think men are dissatisfied but are not complaining as much. And, I think it's a sad state of affairs overall.
I know that you've lived for a while in the States. Do you see a difference?
No, I think it's probably worse over there than it is here. I mean, really what you've had no-fault divorce has come in, so there's been a big breakdown in families. Women have this, or are sort of indoctrinated with this notion that they can kind of do it all, they can have children, they can work, at the same level as men can, and they can kind of be all things to all people, and they get burnt out. They rely on government welfare programs to supplement the lack of a husband or a breadwinner in the household. There's been divorce laws that are highly unfair to men. Men don't get the benefits of marriage, but women do get the financial benefits after they've been married. They get alimony or they get child support. They also get child custody 99% of the time. And, abortion laws are the same. Women get to choose whether they abort the baby or not. The husband or the father gets no say. And, it's just this notion that, legally women have a different set of rules than men do. I think it breeds resentment. And, over the course of the last few decades, I think men have pulled back from marriage and from relationships with women that they want to invest in. And it's caused a lot of unhappiness from women. They can't really understand why their mother and their grandmother were married for 50 years, but yet, they can't hold a boyfriend for more than about 2 weeks. This is the state of affairs that we're in.
You've touched very interesting points here, and I'd like to talk more about that. Let's start with this. What do you think is a man's position in this equation?
Well, I believe in traditional gender roles. I mean, I believe the man as a breadwinner, as a head of household, as an authority over the family, and as a provider and protector for the family. Men like being out working, and they get purpose and fulfillment from all those things that I've just described. Women, by contrast, get the same fulfillment by being a good wife or partner, by being a good mother. They have a biological imperative to have children for the most part. And, women have strong social bonds within their communities and within their families. And when women are pushed out into the workplace, they like the independence of having their own income, but they're trying to compete with men in the same jobs, whereas men have thousands and thousands of years of practical biological programming, because they've been, the men that have survived, the genes that have survived are the men that are, strong and good at problem solving and are brave and courageous and all these sorts of things. Women don't have those same, biological genes passed down because, over the last sort of 1,000 or 10,000 years, women have focused on domestic child rearing type roles.
But wait a second. You talked and you emphasized a lot about the equality, not for women to be treated in a different way or men. So we're talking about here equality.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about equal opportunity.
Exactly.
Now, if women want to go out and work, no problem. I got no problem with that. But your question was about traditional, or what roles do I think, or the way I interpreted it, what roles do you think people are most happy? And I think men are most happy when they're, providing and protecting and caring for a family and working, and then I think women are most happy when they're focused on a traditional family life, looking after children, rearing children, supporting their husband or their partner. And I just think that's what makes each gender the most happy. Now, if an individual woman or man wants to change that over, the man wants to look after children all day long, or a woman wants to go out and work all day long, I think that's fine. But I think what we're doing as a society is we're pushing women into work. We're saying to women, you can do whatever you want to do as long as you work. And this is what benefits the corporate interests of the country. If you double the pool of labour, you halve the cost of each unit of labour. We used to just have men working and they would support themselves and their family. Now we have men working and women working, so we double the supply of labour and we halve the cost of labour. So businesses benefit, but I'm not sure that women benefit. I think a lot of women get to an age of life and they look back and they say, look, I worked really hard. I had a lot of success, but I'm not getting the personal fulfillment that I thought I would get. And some women feel they don't have any choice but to work. They maybe want to pursue a sort of a family life, get married, stay at home, look after their children. And they feel like socially they are looked down upon if they do that. And I don't think they should be. I think it's wrong to exploit women and say they all have to work if they don't want to. If some want to work, that's fine. If others don't want to work, that's equally fine. Women have got to pursue, each individual woman has got to pursue what her, definition of happiness, and I support that.
Exactly, but from what you're saying, it seems like you believe that every woman would be more fulfilled and happy if she will solely raise children.
I wouldn't say every woman, but I'd say 90% plus. Yeah, I would think that in their young sort of prime fertility age, sort of in the 18 to 30, 35 age. When they get beyond that, maybe their children are older or they're less interested in having children, then they might be much more interested in go out to work and do that sort of thing. Yeah, I could totally see that because their children grow up gradually. I mean, women aren't having young children at age 55. They're having them when they're relatively young. So a woman's life in an ideal scenario, I would say, would be to raise children when they're young, when they're young women, and then they get older and the children grow up, and then they're pursuing more of a professional existence, later in life.
When you see a woman, a career-focused woman, do you think she's unhappy?
I do, yeah.
Why?
I think that a lot. I mean, you only need to switch on. I mean, look at the last 100 years, right? We've given women voting rights. We've given women, rights over no-fault divorce, rights over abortion, rights over owning property, rights over equal pay for equal work, all this sort of stuff. Women have all the same rights as men, yet you switch on the television and you got some women shouting and screaming about how there's so much injustice against women, how there's all this toxic masculinity. I switched on the TV the other night and there's this woman gesticulating and shouting and yelling, complaining about toxic masculinity, but she was much more masculine than some of the toughest men I've ever come across. I've met some tough people, and I was kind of sitting back. I had to switch over the channel to Emmerdale. I didn't even like Emmerdale, but it was the only way to get away from this complaining and this unhappiness that she was demonstrating.
So, for example, would you like for your daughters to be stay-at-home moms?
Yeah, I don't have any daughters. I want to clarify that, but I think they would be most happy if they were doing that. I mean, you give people the option. You say, look, if you want to go out to work, you go out to work. If you want to stay at home and raise children, there's nothing wrong with that. But as a society, we push women out to the workplace now, whether they want to go out or not. And this is to serve corporate interests or to serve government interests. It's not to serve women's interests, I don't think, and it's not to serve men's interests so much, I don't think, because we'd have to change the rules of the workplace to accommodate women. All this sexual harassment stuff and all this, you can't say anything you want to say in case a woman's offended stuff. Men just want to go to work and get on with the work. I think we distract them when we put young women around them in the workplace. I have no problem with men-only workplaces or women-only workplaces, but the bottom line is I just personally think women are happier, pursuing a family life. But if they want to go out in the workplace, I have no problem with that.
Do you think a work environment where only men work there is more beneficial?
I think it's more productive, yeah, because they're not getting distracted. I think this Me Too stuff is going to lead to that. Women are going to keep complaining about, oh, I was offended when this guy gave a presentation, or I was offended when this guy, asked me to move my coat onto someone else's chair. And I think, and now I'm going to sue. So companies take on massive legal liability when they hire women these days because the laws are skewed in their favour or in this favour of grievance. I think we will get to this point where men have men-only companies or men-only floors in offices, women have women-only floors or women-only companies, and that's it.
And do you think this is equality?
Well, equality is equal opportunity. You can go out and start a business, I can go out and start a business, you can hire people, I can hire people. We make money if we appeal to the market or we make a product or a service that the market wants to buy. Yeah, that's totally fine. That's equality to me. Equality of outcome, you're never really going to get because there's always different inputs and different environments and different scenarios that people work towards, different market fluctuations. So, it's not about equality of outcome, but equality of opportunity is fine with me. But it's the women that are complaining. They go into these male spaces and they complain. They say, this is not a comfortable situation or environment for me. We either need to change the environment or we're going to sue. I mean, you look at all these women, they go to university. They want to go to university, which is great. But then they complain there's a rape culture on college campuses. So the only solution to that is to have women-only colleges and men-only colleges. And then the rape culture disappears. You don't want women getting raped at university. So, if they're going to keep saying there's a rape culture, but not stop going to university, then we have no choice but to have women-only and men-only and segregated, gender environments. So get rid of all these complaints.
Have you ever had a boss that was a woman?
Yeah, I've had a boss that was not a woman, but a supervisor or a higher point to me. And, I don't have any problem with that. But what you see and what I did remember from this experience is that the women, they want to be competitive in the workplace, but then they want to have traditional gender roles after work. So we used to go to some happy hours or drinks after work, and she'd expect me to pay because I was the man, but she had a higher salary than me in the office. So, it's a bit of a double standard, I think. And of course, if I was to say, well, no, you better pay, you're the supervisor, you're asking for trouble. So I just didn't go. And I think there's a lot of situations now in work where men see women in the workplace. They say, she could get me into trouble, or she could make a false accusation against me, or she could be dangerous to my career. So I just won't talk to her, or I'll go and hang out over there, or, when it's after work drinks, I'll just go home. So the men are not putting themselves at legal risk.
But is this equality?
It's not about equality, Alexandrina. Every individual's got to look after their own interests, Every man's got to look after their own interests. Every woman's got to look after their own interests. In a workplace scenario, it's people trying to make a living. And, what happens to other people is not really an individual's problem. But I'm looking at this scenario for the betterment of the entire country. I want good gender relations, as I've said. And, I've got solutions, I think, to get to that point. But you have to deal with the situation as it is. The situation as it is right now is not good. but men have to deal with the situation that's right in front of them. If they're at risk of a false accusation, if they're at risk of a sexual harassment lawsuit, they're going to say to themselves, what can I do to prevent this? What can I do to mitigate this? What can I do to be legally on safe ground? And they're gonna try and withdraw from women. That's why you're seeing a massive decline in the marriage rate. That's why you're seeing a massive decline in the birth rate. And these aren't good things for our country. That's why I'm speaking out against it.
So the best case scenario would be if women and men would be separated and not mixed.
Well, I think if the minute women and men were pursuing traditional gender roles, they would be their most happy. I mean, you look at a country like Romania. It's a relatively poor Caucasian country compared to Great Britain, but people have traditional gender roles, and on average, I believe those men and those women are happier than they are here. Here we have men, feminized men, thinking they've got to feminize themselves to be attractive to women. You've got women adopting more masculine roles, whether it be at work or in social situations, and it makes all parties less happy. And there's this gender conflict going on in the culture, and marriage rates are on. I mean, marriage rates have declined, about 50% in the last 40 years.
Why do you think is that?
Well, because men aren't incentivized. Men go into a marriage, and then they get a no-fault divorce, which I think should be illegal because you're being sued for no fault of your own and potentially against your own wishes. So the government then comes in, takes your children away, takes half of your assets away, throws you out of your family home and says you need to pay this woman who you were married to, into perpetuity. And men are going to look at that and say, that's not a deal I want to have. I mean, you don't have prenuptial agreements in Britain that are legally binding. They should be legally binding. So, we could get married, both the man and the woman know the terms of the agreement up front, and everything's crystal clear, just like it would be if you took out a mortgage on a house or whatever. Excuse me. And then you have a situation where everyone knows the terms of the deal up front. But what you have is a sort of an open-ended marriage, and then if one party, let's say it's the woman because they're filing for divorce 4 out of 5 times, says, no, I don't want to be married anymore, I'm leaving, but you need to pay up, the state then comes in and arbitrates in a way that favours women, because the divorce laws are pre-sexual revolution. They haven't been updated in that time. These were the days where women were at risk of pregnancy, kind of any time. They were more vulnerable to illness and death from childbirth. They lived less long than they do now. And, the laws need to be updated for the times, the marriage laws do, because the reason there's a decline in marriage is because it's less viable for men. Women still want to get married because they benefit so much, but men do not benefit that much. They oftentimes are opening themselves up to grave legal risk. They're inviting the state into their lives to say, well, where are your children going to go? How much money do you need to spend on your children? How much money can you keep for yourself that you've earned after tax? And America said, this isn't a very good deal. I don't think I want to do this. Now just dating women is legal risk. Just interacting with women is legal risk. So it's more and more risk for men just to interact with women full stop before you even get to marriage. So that's the problem we have.
Would you say that it's easier to be a woman?
I think the whole society is set up to cater to women. Yeah, I mean, we have welfare that's predominantly consumed by women and paid by men. We have laws that favour women and penalise men. I think that women have biological disadvantages to men, but all the laws and the money supply in the country is trying to mitigate that for women. I think despite all those benefits, women are still less happy than they were in a traditional life. So whether it's easier or not is one thing, but happiness, I think, is something else.
Yeah, but happiness is very subjective.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at these polls about, how happy are you? And, they go down every year for British people, especially women. So, I think that says, I think that tells its own story.
Going back to marriages, do you think women marry because they see this as a business deal?
I think women marry for financial security. They want to have a provider, financial provider, so they can have children, and that those children can then be catered for financially, and that makes total sense. Marriage was something that was invented by men originally to help women survive and prosper in society because they were not working. So if women were not working, they've got to be catered to in some way, and that's totally fine. And the social contract would say in exchange men are getting female intimacy, female fertility, and someone to help build a family, and that's a benefit for men. But if women get all the benefits of marriage but men do not, then that's not a fair deal. That's a violation of the social contract. So marriage rates are declining for a reason, Alexandrina, and I'm trying to explain what that reason is. It's not just a figment of my imagination that marriage rates have crashed through the floor, that birth rates have crashed. And I think personally that's bad for society. Other people might think that's good for society. So, it's a matter of opinion.
So when a man marries a woman, does he take a risk?
He takes huge risk. Yeah, I mean, you and I could get married, for example. You could sue me for a no-fault divorce. You could take my children. You could take my house. You could take 50% of my assets. You could say David was just a bad guy, full stop. And I could potentially have to pay you alimony or maintenance for life to keep you at the standard of living you'd become accustomed to. What about my standard of living? Who's going to keep me in that same level? No one. Men deserve the right to have control of their wealth, to have control of their children, or at least 50%, 50-50, that's equality. And, for the state to come in and say, no, we're taking that away from you through no fault of your own and against your wishes, I think that's totally outrageous. And, I think people that get married, I'm a big proponent of marriage, but it needs to be a fair deal. That's why I'm a proponent of prenuptial agreements that are legally binding, which Britain does not have.
So how do you understand the notion of healthy marriage?
Healthy marriage is a partnership based on trust and based on mutual respect, and where you're working together toward mutual goals, and you're creating a happy life for yourself. I mean, the reason I'm talking about this, I want to tie it back to false accusations, because this one-sidedness in marriage, in abortion, has led to a one-sidedness in false accusations of sexual assault. It's like we've got to believe the woman no matter what. Women get preferential treatment under the law based on these other events. I mean, false accusations of rape are just a sort of a stepchild of no-fault divorce laws from a generation ago, or abortion laws from the 1970s. It's women getting to choose the outcome, and men not really having fewer rights to the same freedoms that women have,
So how exactly would you define healthy gender relations?
That's a good question. Where men and women are together and they're happy together, and it's an equal playing field, it's an equal social contract. I mean, I think there's a lot of incentives we can offer as a society, financial vehicles that allow couples who stay together to earn more money. They can have investment opportunities where they both put a portion of their salary into a bond that matures at accelerating rates when they reach certain relationship milestones, like they're together for 10 years, or they're together for 15 years, or they're together for 20 years. So they make more and more money collectively as part of those achievements, rather than, when they break up, the woman makes a lot of money, the man loses a lot of money. That's not a win-win. You've got to have equal access to children. Men have 50% custody, women have 50% custody, and this incentivizes women to have children with the right guy. They can't just meet a guy down at unemployment and then say, okay, well, this guy's got no job, I can't marry him, but I'll keep the child, and then I'll get my own council house and I'll get welfare from the taxpayer for 18 years. That's costing taxpayers a fortune, that those taxpayers have not had a say in whether they wanted that child to be born, whether they thought that was the the right way to go. Children that live in a household without the father are less productive. They miss the masculine role model, the male role model, and they are more likely to turn to crime and delinquency and drugs and bad things. We don't want that. If you've got a happy, stable parental couple that are married, or at least in a stable relationship, that child has a much greater chance of success in life, and that's what I want to see. I think couples, they don't necessarily need to stay together for life, but they do need to stay together for 20 years if they're going to have children. And I think that's what we want to try and create as a society, couples that can come together, that are the right couple, the right man for the woman, vice versa, and committed to staying together, working together, achieving together, being happy together, and raising successful children together, rather than what we have now, which is a lot of single mother households, a massive amount of taxpayer funded welfare on children that don't have a masculine role model, or a good one, or their father in the house, and are less happy and less productive. It's not what I want.